So welcome back, everybody, to this monthly member spotlight. Joining me today is Brett Aylen from Brett Aylen Architecture. Hello, Brett.
Hey, Bram, how's it going?
Fantastic. I'm thrilled to see you, and I appreciate you coming in and sharing a little bit more about you, your business, and things that sometimes happens when we live. Human beings that we are. We go all through our ups and downs, and it's just another way for us to be able to share with our community and be real, be authentic. Just tell us a little bit more about you, Brett, so that other members can familiarize themselves with you.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm an architect, have been for many years. In fact, I always imagined myself as an architect, even as a kid. I used to love drawing houses. I mean, I think all kids probably do that at some point, but for me, it was kind of, I don't know, it was always a bit of a calling. So then I studied architecture and became an architect, and now run my own business designing houses all over Adelaide and Adelaide Hills. And I'm also a through and through greenie. I grew up with parents that were, protesting for the environment. So that's part of my DNA. So the architecture that I design always has sustainability fully integrated into it. So that's certainly one of my passions, and yeah, close to my heart. So yeah, I mean, I design houses and house extensions primarily, but also ecotourism projects, and I've done winery cellar doors and office fit outs, and yeah, as an architect, essentially can do anything.
Speaking of which, when you mentioned sustainability, we actually met at the sustainability drinks, which were held back in the days on King William Road. Now, this goes easily back 10 years, so we've known each other for a while. And speaking of commercial fit outs, you also, and at least you and your back then partner, have also designed our commercial space back then, which was on South Road in Theberton. So we love what you guys do. I personally also love what you represent as a human being. You're very much in tune with, personal values, purpose, mission, spirituality, have a big caring factor. And that all just basically, is a nice plus to, for people to come together and connect and so on. Hmm?
Yeah, indeed. And that very much weaves into my work. So my way of life. Yeah, I would describe myself as a reasonably kind of spiritual person, I guess. And, you made the introduction about keeping it real and human, and, allowing for vulnerability, I guess, in this space. And yeah, I did wear something that's important to me today, is an arrowhead I got through a rite of passage journey. So yeah, it's kind of like more and more at this end of my life, I'm wanting to just be who I am.
But we've been on the journey for a little while. I've known, what's happening and what you've been up to. How long have you been in business for, Brett?
Since 2009. So essentially started business in my own right when the GFC arrived. So I was working for an architecture firm. There were about 10 architects engaged, and the boss called us all in and said, well, looks like work is kind of drying up. Has anybody got anything better to do? And I put my hand up and said, well, I was always going to start my own business at some point, so I guess now is as good a time as any.
Nice. I like it. So you basically leaped into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us, how did that feel like when, leaving full-time employment, typical paid salary and all the perks that go with it, then suddenly going to start your own shop, start it from scratch, put your money in it and your time without any guarantees. How did that go for you?
Yeah, it was challenging, because yeah, I'm an architect and a creative, and not a business person by nature. So I guess I was confident in my ability as an architect and my purpose to serve. And I guess I just had great trust in that. But yeah, it was definitely a slow process to begin with. So the the finances were pretty. It was tested, you know, it really tested myself and my wife and my family. I had 2 young children at the time, so I mean, in some ways it was beautiful because it meant that I was working from home, and so I had a lot more time to be around my children.
Mhm.
So yeah, to be honest, the money was tight, but the time was quality.
Yeah, that's it. And I know how much you care about your family. 2 beautiful kids, and obviously your wife. Obviously your wife is also very spiritual. She runs her own retreats, works with a lot of women, with things that, you know, women care about and the likes. And I think also yoga or healing and all of that sort of stuff. So there's definitely a lot of personal development and wellness and the likes going on, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty clear that that's who I am. And, you know, perhaps sometimes I hide that a bit in my business profile, but I think it's important for me to bring that more and more to the fore, because I think that's one of my great strengths is, you know, that part of who I am.
Absolutely. Now, tell us about the evolution of your business, Brett, because again, many people in the success community are potentially still in that sort of, I'm employed by someone, but I always got the feeling that I'm going to do my own thing one day. Or we got a lot of people that are like you and myself, business owners that have already been on this trajectory for a little while, have had our ups and downs. How was your, let's say, your start in 2009 all the way to now 2023? How has this kind of evolved, and how has your business morphed along the way?
Yeah, good question. So in 2009, I jumped out of a full-time job, started working from home, set up my own business, and I just did it very simply in the sense that I just acted as a sole trader to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've been a sole trader just under my own name since then. I was approached very quickly by someone to go into business together. So we did set up a business together, and we ran a fairly successful small architecture practice for about 7 years, and won some awards and kind of, yeah, we were on the board, on the map, so to speak. But that partnership unfortunately broke down. I mean, I guess business partnerships are like that. They can be complex. So I've had the experience of going into partnership and having it work to a certain extent, but then kind of break down, and I left that partnership. And for me, it was just then easy to go back to operating as a sole trader. So I've been doing that now for 5 years or so. But I always had the vision of starting a new brand. And last year I started that journey. And yeah, so
exciting.
The brand is 3 Wild Architects, and it's kind of not quite fully launched yet. I've got the presence, I've got some online presence, I've got a website underway. There's a display home that I worked with a builder that's been built. So it's all there, ready to launch. But to be honest, there's a couple of reasons why I haven't launched it, a couple of personal reasons. I'm actually waiting until I get to a really clear space in myself, and I've got the energy that it needs to really launch it properly. Yep. So that's just where I'm sitting right at the moment.
I understand, and we'll touch on the personal stuff in a moment, a little bit. But there's a few comments that you made that I think are really worth exploring. One was the business partnership at the time with Paul. You said, well, after 6 years, that kind of broke down, mainly because of clashes, I'd say. It would be interesting briefly to touch on that. Like, what has been your experience with partnerships, and knowing what you now know, would you have done differently with a business partnership?
Yeah, good question. I think by nature, I'm a collaborative person. So at the time when I went into that partnership, I was very much leading with the heart and just feeling like, yeah, it's a great idea. And I guess I felt that Paul had certain skills that I didn't have. So I felt like together we were a good team.
Mhm.
But I do think that maybe I was relying a little bit too much on the technical skill that I thought he was bringing to the partnership, and I didn't check in deeply enough on the values alignment.
Mm.
So I think it's definitely made me a bit more wary about partnership and the importance of checking in with the values alignment. And that's probably the most important thing now if I was going to go into another partnership.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's I'm not saying I won't go into another partnership, but I'll go into it a lot more carefully, I suppose. Yeah,
Mm.
next time.
Great. I've had this conversation with many entrepreneurs and business owners over the years, and the ones who had a similar experience to you always said what looked good on paper and what looked like complementary skill sets and the likes and networks and resources to bring to the table ended up basically being a breakout based on personal clashes. And I think the ones that also had got it right, they shared with me openly that they said they got it right because they already had a friendship, which means they already connected personally. They already were like-minded before they even started the business together. And they took their time to form that relationship first before the business kind of came to fruition. So that I think was a really key things to share with other people here. Partnerships are complex and you want to get it right. And therefore you got to take the time to first feel out the person and make sure that you can work together and like each other enough so that you can deal with all the challenges and setbacks along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Mm. Now, there was a second point that you mentioned there as well, Brett, earlier, and that is one of looking to scale. You got a new brand that is not just about you in your own right. And by the way, your team has grown over the years, so it's not just you anymore. But actually, before we go to the question, let's just first share where the team is currently.
Sure. So yeah, I have one full-time architect engaged. That's Damien, and yeah, we've been working together for a couple of years now, about 2.5 years or so, and that's going great. Damien is very much part of the team and part of the brand, and was part of the branding workshop for the new brand. So that's going really well. I've also got a drafter that I employ part-time and a bookkeeper that I employ in-house part-time. So yeah, I definitely have the vision of growing a small team. I like to have people around me. So yeah, that's really nice part of where I'm at the moment. And certainly the vision of 3 Wild is that it will grow into a slightly larger team. And yeah, so that's the next step, the next move.
That's it. And we definitely hear again the word of collaboration, the collaborative nature that you have of wanting to be surrounded by people and work with them together and achieve things together, which you've been doing great. I've been very privileged and fortunate to be part of that journey and see like where you've gone and where it's now taking you. The next thing that we started talking about, but I think is really worth exploring. You mentioned, like, we spoke about you coming into this interview beforehand and said, like, look, I feel that our community needs a little bit more authentic, real conversations and interviews that not just talk about, oh, I'm going great, this is all great, I'm successful, rah, rah, rah. We want to also be, like you said beautifully, vulnerable and just share. And so what is, where are you now? And you said, something is holding me a little bit away from launching fully with the new brand and go for that business growth. Tell us a little bit more, as much or as little as you like to share, what you're going through right now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, look, so I guess, like I said earlier, I feel like I'm a creative first and foremost, and not necessarily a natural business person or a natural entrepreneur. So the idea of launching something new definitely challenges me at a fairly deep level. And I was realizing last year that I was attempting to launch the brand, and I was finding it hard work. It was kind of how to describe it. It's like it was all hard work, hard going. And I got to the point where I was reflecting on that and sort of thinking, you know what? it really should be easy. And I find in life that when I'm really clear in myself what I want and what I need, it becomes obvious what the next step is. So I decided to actually step back from it and give myself the time for the clarity and the insight to arrive before I proceed and launch. Because I think it's really important when I'm launching something new to just feel really good about it. I think that energy, comes across into the world.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and there is a bigger piece for me personally. I've been in a relationship now with my wife for 20 years, and we have reached a point where we're questioning the relationship. And I've found that that there's a certain amount of, I guess I'm describing it as stress that's coming from that. And there's an opportunity here for myself and my wife to go through some big growth. So I'm in a period personally of some really big growth. Like I did a lot of self-work in my 20s and 30s. I'm now 53, and it feels like it's another opportunity in my life to do some big work. I've got teenage children, and there's a bit more space for me personally. And so my wife and I are going through a big sort of inward journey, I suppose, and then we're going to come back together, and our goal is to spend another 20 years, but in a very conscious way. So I guess I'm going through that process at the moment, and I've just got to be a little bit careful that I don't just charge ahead with the business and not spend the time that I need for myself at this time.
I think that is such a beautiful message that you're openly sharing with everybody. I think this is just a gift that you're giving everybody now, because what you're saying is, as a business owner, it's very easy to get lured into the busyness and thinking that you have to do this, and you obviously got responsibilities, you got staff, you got bills to pay for, the whole lot. And that you basically say, hey, I'm just going to pause, give myself the space, time and bandwidth to just tune in with myself and do the personal work, without using the business as an excuse to kind of look away from it. So I think that's very mature. I think it's very wise, and it's very responsible for two people really in a relationship to give yourself that time and space to do this, so that you can, take it to the next level. Because yes, let's be honest, like we all get businesses there, yes, but we have our personal lives, and sometimes one requires more attention. And it's easy to get a bit in a lull, or a bit in an impasse, a bottleneck, and just recognizing that it's there and doing something about it. I commend you and Jack for it. So well done.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, I guess I'm just reflecting on hearing you reflecting back to me, and I'm just kind of realizing, yeah, the relationship with my wife is more important than my business. So I'm putting that first. I'm putting my wife and my family first, and really working and putting 150% into that first. And then once that's clear, then I'll have 150% to put into my business. That's
really, really good. One thing that I also appreciated from what you brought to the table, Brett, is how you said, like you've been feeling a certain way about launching this new thing, giving birth to a new brand, and basically a conscious business growth trajectory. And you've been slowing it down because it didn't feel right at the time. Something was holding you back. And I think just the fact that you didn't resist it, and that you just allowed it without trying to force it, is probably something that, again, people that may be watching this video at some point may take something home from. Because I don't know, my personality, I remember me being, at some point in my trajectory with my business and also my personal life, being challenged. And I sometimes have the tendency to push through, even though it doesn't feel right. And it's just good to recognize that if you're that kind of person that thinks you got to keep at it, you got to persist, you got to deal with adversity, and you just got to be stronger and use your mind over matter and all of this sort of thinking. I like what you bring to the table. And in fact, I've learned a lot from you along the way in that sense, that it's good to really tune in with yourself and allow that what is telling you, what your feelings are telling you, to actually give that a chance, right? Because it's very easy to tuck it away and to a blind eye to it.
Yeah. I think it depends what's holding you back and why it's hard. So I think, for me personally, I know I have some, I guess, fears and challenges around launching a new business. And sometimes it's good to push through those. Like if it was only that, I think it would be important that I did push through. And so at one point last year, I was kind of blaming myself for not pushing through that. But the reason that I shared for not pushing through is a bit different. It's not as simple as, say, the fear of starting a new business. It's kind of bigger than that. So I said, I think it's important to tune in to where the challenge is. And in some cases, it's really important to push through.
True. I like that. It's a good comment there, and a good remark. One thing that I'm hearing here is the big word of awareness. It seems to be really big for you. You really tune in with yourself and other people. It's something that clearly you've developed over time, a lot of self-awareness. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think I'm very big on self-awareness. I mean, I describe myself being on a spiritual path, and I mean, what's the point of that? I suppose the point is to become more and more self-aware and to be the best human I can possibly be. So that's really the ultimate goal. I think the only way to achieve that is to have really clear self-awareness. So and this challenge that I'm going through at the moment that I talked about, with the relationship, I do absolutely see that as an opportunity to reflect and look inward and really focus on myself and turn up the volume on the self-awareness piece, because I can't rely on the work that I've done on the past. I have to keep doing new work, because I very much feel that things become habitual, and to a certain extent, I've stopped seeing my own weaknesses or my own habits. So I've stopped seeing the things that are dysfunctional and holding me back in my relationship and in my work. So in order to move forward, I feel like I need to stop and go inward.
Yes. And I love that. I really, really commend you and Jack for taking this approach, looking at it in that way. And then, like you said, taking the time and making the efforts required to take it to a new level. Because yes, 20 years is a long time. It's very easy to get comfortable in a certain way of being and a certain way of doing. And unless you allow yourself to be self-aware and responsible and kind of questioning it at time, if it needs to, we just continue doing the old, the same old.
Yeah. And I very much feel that when I'm ready in a business sense to do something new, I'm very, very good at manifesting the new. So when I'm in alignment, with myself, and there's congruence there, then I know that I have a great power to manifest, and I have a great trust in that.
Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that manifestation in the way that you're talking about, just so that everybody understands where you're coming from.
Sure. Well, I'm reading Joe Dispenza at the moment, so I'm reading Becoming Supernatural, and I very much align with his concept of we are essentially our past. So we're made up of our past experiences and emotions, and in order to create something new, it's like we need to find a place of stillness. We need to enter into the unknown, into the quantum potential of the unknown, where all things are possible. So I'm very much practicing at the moment, entering into that space of infinite potential. And then from that space, anything is possible to create. It's just about holding a clear enough intention that I bring those things to me.
Beautiful. So yeah, so it's about realizing your vision. It's about achieving the things you want. It's about making things happen. It's about being, doing, having, you know, meeting those desires and the like. So yeah, the beauty of it is everything can go real fast.
That's right.
We're ready and we're in that place, right?
Exactly. Rapid transformation. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited about that journey ahead, Brett. Mindful of time here. If there is any one thing that you could share with people who might have their own little things right now that they don't know what to do with, what would you recommend those people to do from here?
Tune in to self. Take some time. Turn off your phone. Go for a walk in nature. Unplug for a little while and listen.
Beautiful. Love it. Now, for everybody, obviously, Brett is in part of the success community. If you're not in there yet, you'll find your way with a link that will be somewhere below the video here to connect with him. Otherwise, Brett, where could people find you if they would ever want to talk to you about either, you know, something that you just share with us, or that where they say, hey, I'm really ready to build a beautiful home, the dream home. I want to make sure that it's passive, like a passive home, or it's more eco-friendly. You know, how could they find you and connect with you?
Yeah. So brettaylen.com.au is my personal brand, and Three Wild Architects is my new brand. So yeah, look up either of those and you'll find me.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that those links will be added on later on under the video again. Brett, it's been a pleasure. I have always enjoyed working with you, and I continue, being in each other's life, for the foreseeable future. We're only halfway, if you're only 53, you still got another 53 years, if not more ahead, if everything goes well. So let's just keep plowing away. But hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Bram, and cheers to another 50 years.